Your host, Makayla Simone, challenging all you leaders out there to live your success on purpose. I want to challenge you by interviewing individuals who are believing and achieving their dream. Stay tuned right here on k-root.org from 12 to 1 p.m. with Makayla Simone.
Hello and good afternoon, Kansas City. I am so excited to be back yet again with my listeners as your host, Makayla Simone, on this wonderful Wednesday, September 27th, 2017. I hope you guys are ready for some insight on today on walking in purpose. And I hope that it will be just what you need for this week. But before I go further, I just want to announce someone very, very special that is co-hosting with me on this first half of the show. And I just let him introduce himself. He kind of happens to be my husband, but I'll let him introduce himself.
Well, thank you for that wonderful, wonderful intro. This is Marquis Harris, as she said, the husband of the Makayla Simone. So excited to be here on this afternoon, this wonderful Wednesday, just to talk about purpose, something I'm very passionate about, something that I actually wrote a book about. So we'll get into a little bit about that today, but excited to get the show going, excited to see, what comes about. So I'll pass it back over.
Yes, and just want to remind my listeners that you can tweet me at Makayla Simone H, or you can text the radio station 816-287-0090 for any questions, comments, and requests. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. So just like last week, I just want to say thank you to those who are tuning in. This is show number 5, and I encourage you to invite people to listen in on today. Well, the topic today is walking in purpose. And by dictionary, purpose is a reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. And so I want you all to imagine your life as just like kind of walking through a path where you just kind of don't see anything. You may be in some woods or whatever the case may be, but however you see your path right now, we want to encourage you to walk in purpose on today. And last week was Your Life Brand, and so I like to kind of give listeners what we talked about last week when Jasmine was on the show, Jasmine Diane, and we talked about just protecting your image and protecting your heart and marketing your value as a brand. And so now that we talked about those, now we want to actually talk about purpose. And so today the show will be focused strictly on purpose. So many people ask this question, Marquis, what is my purpose in life? And I find it interesting that there are so many people out there who believe they do not have a purpose in life, which is why this topic today is so important. So, just when I went off to college as a freshman, and you think you have got it going on, and you think you know what you're doing, and you really question, like, okay, what really is my purpose in life? And so I know that we have your book here on today, Unashamed, Break Into Your Purpose. And I opened your book earlier today and yesterday, just realizing, wow, this is just the perfect book to talk about purpose, because you talk about this in the book. And published this last year. Last year.
Yes,
and so I want to read to the listeners kind of something that you said in the book, and I want to kind of just engage you and want you to encourage listeners, because this is you in writing, but you're on air today,
yeah,
so that's
something different.
So in the book you said, throughout my entire lifetime, I had one goal in mind: live life on purpose. I have always had the desire to be remembered. The last thing I want to feel is that my life was meaningless and my very existence was in vain. I couldn't fathom a life in which my purpose was to live a life of solitude, never to be remembered. By the time of my death, would I have fulfilled my purpose? Yes. Would I have been happy knowing that taking up space was my only life purpose and destiny? No. Since we were designed to be social beings, having to be alone and witness everyone else live out their dreams as my own, life wasted away would have been devastating. And so then you said, when it came to discover my purpose, I had to come to know who I was and who I wanted to become. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about walking in purpose, why is it so important to just know who you are? I know we're all learning and adjusting each and every day, but just where your foundation is, grounded in, and just saying, this is why I wake up every single day and live on purpose.
Right. No, that was some deep stuff, man. Just reflecting as I'm listening to the words that are being read. And I just remember even during that time as I was writing in that discovery of identity, before you can ever figure out, what is it that I'm supposed to do in life, you have to figure out, okay, why am I even here? Who am I? What do I really represent? And for me, that question really became normal whenever I gave my life to Christ. And when I gave my life to Christ, there was just a newfound notion of what it was I was supposed to do, how it was I was supposed to go about doing it, because I had all these gifts, I had all these talents, right? But ultimately, they didn't mean anything if I didn't know who I was and why I was supposed to be doing it. So understanding that my purpose was in Christ, that my purpose was grounded in the fact that I was about the kingdom. I was about building the kingdom. If I'm building the kingdom, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Then ultimately I'm finding out, okay, my identity is found in Christ. Now I can discover just a little bit more about what it means to walk into your purpose, what it means to break into who you are. So ultimately it's rooted in, do I know who I am?
Right.
And do I know where it is that I'm supposed to go? And then that's whenever you start to break into what it means to the purpose side of stuff.
Right. And so something else I want to mention that you said in the book was realizing that life was about more than making money and having the best thing it could buy. I knew that my purpose was unique. And so to encourage someone, as you talked about where your foundation is, I mean, just for someone who wrote a book, I mean, what makes this book so unique that someone could pick this up and like, wow, I can live life on purpose after reading this?
Right. I say the biggest thing to think about is that, for some time, I never thought that I'd become a published author. For some time, I never thought that I'd be speaking to the groups and the crowds that I've been in front of. And I think the biggest challenge that I had to overcome in the process of writing that, and what's going to be so freeing for so many other people, is that I realized that, I have a gift and I have a story to tell. And my story happened to come through a way in which that, one, I was telling you, I can speak. That wasn't necessary. It was the writing element. And I knew having that platform, that avenue for people to have an idea of who I was without ever meeting me, that's what the book represented. And so for so many individuals, I heard it time and time again, the testimonies, just in them reading it and inspired them to, there are people that have published books, that have started writing, that have started chasing their dreams just because of the focus of me stepping into mine. And I realized that the power in me sharing my story ultimately gave the opportunity for someone else to share their story, no matter what it was. Maybe it wasn't in writing, maybe it was through speaking, maybe it was in starting a specific business or whatever it may be. That's what the power that lies in, just finishing that book. So that's a little shameless plug to go out there and get it and do what you do.
So yeah, it's crazy because as I was developing this show, and I was like, "Ooh, I want to pull stuff out of this book because it's," and then I realized, who could say it better than you could? So I was like, "Hey,
This is true.
you come be my co-host on today," and so now you're here. But I want to talk about the $1 billion idea, and I also put it out of your book, Unashamed. And it's very true that all of us, you talked about how all of us have that $1 billion idea.
Right.
And so the $1 billion idea is the how and the what behind our why. And so I just want to quote this from your book. It is the idea that we ultimately change the direction of our life. Its worth is not based on monetary gain, but rather the impact on the lives of others. The true essence of the $1 billion idea is finding that one thing that you devote the rest of your time on earth to do. Your passion and gift align with your purpose. And so just kind of give us more on that $1 billion idea.
So this $1 billion idea, this is the, man, when I was writing this book, and I actually teach this in one of my programs, Paid to Dream, and this is ultimately it's the concept that your how plus your what is ultimately what's going to fuel your why. And it's the one thing you devote the rest of your life to doing. And as I mentioned before, it's not about the monetary value. Yeah, you hear $1 billion idea. Yeah, for some people, the idea, the concept of $1 billion idea can make them rich. But the other side of it is that it's ultimately about serving people. If your focus is on self, if your focus is on just gaining the money and going out doing this just to build self-recognition, you're never going to succeed. You're never going to get to where it is that you're going, because we are naturally meant to serve no matter where we are in life. You hear it time and time again, freshmen in college, people who are just going on in life, they're talking about, I just want to help people. I just want to help people. I just want to help people. And I'm like, yeah, You're supposed to help people. We're meant to serve because no matter what business you get into, no matter what product you decide to get out there, it's to serve somebody. It's to fulfill a need. And some people do it through entertainment. Others do it through an actual product. And for me, that happens to do with on multiple different platforms. But ultimately, that's the concept behind the $1 billion idea. It's not just the money, but it's the how plus the what that fuels your why.
And that's why I like, your organization, Pay to Dream, because we hear it's like, oh, Pay to Dream, I can get paid. But you're talking about, not looking at so much of the money thing. And in your book, you said, in order to this, if I could do something for the rest of my life and not get paid, what would it be? And even in my life, as I reflect on what would I do doing today that if I didn't get paid for it, I would still love to do it. Mm-hmm. And so even my foundation and starting No Scars Movement and just the things I do, even at church and serving, like I love it, because no matter what, you're serving other people and you're seeing them uplifted and you're seeing them inspired and you're seeing them actually walk into their purpose. I think that's just an amazing thing to see. And so I love that. I love the whole $1 billion idea. And I was just wow, kind of get you to reflect, okay, what's my why? Mm-hmm. And because sometimes your why, throughout life, you go through things, your why changes. And so
the foundation behind your why doesn't necessarily change. It's the how that might change. It's the how that changes. So, my purpose, when you're figuring out, what it means to operate in the $1 billion idea, the ultimate thing for me is being able to serve people. Because when you're discovering the how, it's what would you do if money wasn't an option? What would you do for the rest of your life if you knew you didn't and you wouldn't get paid to do it? And for me, that's speaking and inspiring others to reach their dreams and achieve the things that they want to do in life. Then the other side of it is the what. Now, the what, this is a unique thing. Some people may think, oh, the what is probably you're speaking. I say, no. The what is the passion behind it. Now, some people have looked at passion as being one of those things that, oh, it's something you just love to do. Not necessarily. I define passion as that thing that bothers you the most that you have to do something about. I'll say it again. Passion, discovering your passion is what is that thing that bothers you the most that you have to do something about. For me, it was seeing people live in a mediocre lifestyle. They're okay with being okay. They've accepted mediocrity as a lifestyle. And so for me, I said, man, it drives me insane to see people operating in that because I'm like, man, you're wasting away talent. You're wasting away so much that you have stored on the inside of you. And frankly, you operating in what it means to be you and the maximized self of you, you're going to help someone else fulfill their dreams. You're going to help someone else be free. And that's what it's ultimately about.
Yeah. And just in here in your book, you said, in other words, choosing a life of mediocrity. You talk about that in the book. You talk about it in your Pay to Dream programs and things like that. And one thing I want to quote real fast is because we always do Wisdom Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And I got this quote. For those who are listening, I always quote Wisdom Wednesday quotes from Twitter because it trends every single week. And I said, well, why not? Bring it on the show. And one thing that someone tweeted was, too often we tend to compare ourselves with others. Don't mix your potential with someone else's purpose. Mm. And I really like that because oftentimes, we've all been in that situation where we're looking at other people's dreams and other people's goals. And we're like, man, I wish I was there and I wish I was them. And so you can't focus on what your purpose is in life because you're focusing on how someone else is living their dream or living or building their brand, whatever it is. And so I thought that was powerful because how often do we sometimes compare ourselves with people, and the danger behind that being we find ourselves living in someone else's dream, living in someone else's reality. Mm-hmm. And so I know you want to have a kind of comment on that.
Oh, man, that's actually in chapter 1. I talk about that, breaking the spirit of comparison. And that was the biggest struggle that I had to get over. And that so many people have to get over is that they're trying to live their life wearing someone else's shoes. They're looking at the highlight reel of someone else's life, trying to achieve that, but they don't realize the process that it took to get there. And then they're also not realizing that the gifts that they have aren't necessarily gifts that someone else has had. So if I gave someone, my book and I told them to go out there and deliver the message behind the book the way I would, they couldn't do it because I had a gift. It's my story. So with each person that comes into contact with any other person in their life and discovering their purpose, you can't look at someone else in your race. You have to stay in your lane. You hear it all the time. Stay in your lane, stay in your lane. But in life, when it comes to achieving your dreams, when it comes to achieving your purpose, you have to stay in your lane. You have to know where you're supposed to be and where you're supposed to stay. Because as you build that momentum and pushing towards the end goal for you, guess what? The people that's going to come behind you are going to see that you paved the way in a way that was a lot easier than it was for the person before you, the person before you. So you're building that
it's like people see the success, but they don't see the steps that it took to
oh,
get
no,
there.
they don't want to go through it.
They don't want to go through it. And I can just remember so many times where, even in my life, it's like, oh, it looks good that far away, but it's like, why can't I just jump and get there now? And so I think that hinders the process of just growing in purpose, like taking it a day at a time and really saying what's meant for me for today is for today and today only. Mm-hmm. And so another Wisdom Wednesday quote, because I always have to get to, that I got from Twitter was, don't focus on promotion too much, but focus on purpose. Mm-hmm. And so you want to kind of just feedback on that?
Man, so the biggest thing I get from that, the idea of where you're going, you can get so caught up in the future that you forget that you have to live in the moment. Right. Living in the moment is the most important element. I've had to learn time and time again. Live in the moment. The things will come. You just have to be diligent with the small things. The promotion will come. The promotion will get there. You will get elevated. You will go to new heights, but you have to take it one day at a time because that's all you're getting. So
well, thank you for coming in with your wife.
Thank you for inviting me in. How do you say no?
To those listening, right? How do you say no? How do you say no to your wife? Really? Like, can you come on the show? No. How could you say no? Especially with someone who's amazing at speaking. So, to those listening, I would love for you to tweet me some Wisdom Wednesday quotes at Makayla Simone H. And we will be back to discuss walking in purpose. I am bringing in Carissa Forte, who is going to be giving you some insight on today. So we will see you back in a few minutes.